Hello there everybody and welcome to another episode of Wiki Weekends, where we wind up a wiki, we take a deep dive and we keep swimming until we find something fun to talk about. I'm your host for this episode, Lucas Holland, and as always, I'm joined by the lovely Karl Smallwood.
Hello.
Often when we talk about movies on this channel, I often just respond with, I have not seen that movie.
Most of the time, yeah, I'm definitely the cinephile of the two of us.
Definitely.
Cinephile. I know content creators, the last part of that word is often cinephile.
You like cinema.
I like movies.
I often, especially like movies that were before my time in terms of 70s and 80s classics and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the time I haven't seen them, or I've seen them one time and don't really remember them, which is the case with what we're talking about today. So I'm just going to kind of slowly, as a new mini-series for the Wiki Weekends, is go back and watch some classic movies that I've missed out on or don't remember.
Okay, because that's if people consume a lot of our content, which I hope they do, and they've got large penises if that's the case, just that is a common saying, hey, so Lucas, here's this classic movie that's well known. It's I've not seen it.
Yeah. So the classic movie that I, as I say, had watched at some point, but don't really remember much of, but I just watched last night, was the original The Terminator.
So you've never seen The Terminator? Oh, I'm really like Nick Frost, you've never seen Bad Boys 2?
What about Lethal Weapon? No. You seen Die Hard 2? No. Bad Boys 2? No. You ain't seen Bad Boys 2?
So, Karl, I said that I'm working on, catching up on some classic movies like The Terminator. I don't really know what, avenue to go down next, so I've thought, why not, as we do monthly votes on Patreon, let the audience decide what, classic 80s movie I go and watch next that you've probably seen 10 times.
At least, yes. So, yeah, if people are interested in, informing another video like this where you could get to basically just guide Lucas's hips on what discussion he should lead next on a movie, specifically from the 80s, right? Is that what you're going for? You're just going all classic
I think so, because a lot of
movies.
It's just generally classic films that I should watch and have knowledge of, but Alien and Predator are both ones that I should go back and watch. Have you got any other suggestions of maybe classic 80s-ish kind of movies?
I'd have to go, I guess if you're going to go for those two, then I'd also add in Rambo and Rocky, because I know you're not seeing either of those.
Yeah, and again, I know, I wasn't born yet, leave me alone. It's come on.
And then I've got a bunch of bad ones that are not classics, but they're classic to me. It's you've definitely got to go back and watch all the Jean-Claude Van Damme action movies. That were terrible.
Okay. No, I don't want to get that far. No, I'm not committing to that. I'm committing to the good ones. Carl may convince me to watch a Jean-Claude Van Damme movie one day, but
watch Bloodsport. That's the only good one he did, which is Mortal Kombat.
Because I know that I need to catch up on a load of these classic movies, and I just always watch the kind of more artsy, filmy ones like The Godfather, rather than going and watching Alien or Predator. Sue me.
You're gonna watch Godfather 3. then you'll change your mind about artsy movies. It's
the most seminal classic.
No one even gets eaten by an alien. This sucks. I love when you watch Scorsese movies, the idea that you'd be scared of Joe Pesci. He's 4 feet tall.
He is, but he is pretty terrifying at times.
He's terrifying when he's sat down and yelling at you, but I could fucking just push him over.
Whenever I've watched Terminator movies again, you always go straight to Terminator 2. You don't watch The Terminator again, generally.
To be fair, that is true. People immediately go to Terminator 2, right? Unless Terminator's more slow-paced. It's a slower burn than Terminator 2, for sure.
And one very funny thing about watching this movie is we are recording this in the year of 2024, Karl.
Oh, that's when Skynet was going to take over, right?
So the film is set in 1984, and it is a 1984 movie. And I was oh man, that's 40 years ago. And then Karl restarts talking about the Terminator to Sarah Connor, explaining that cyborg with living material on the outside and non-organic material on the inside. And she's that technology doesn't exist. And he's, no, but it will in about 40 years. I was oh no, Skynet is now.
I am not stupid, They cannot make things like that yet.
Not yet. Not for about 40 years.
It's always rough, right, when you watch like a movie from the past, and the age we're living in is when it was near enough into the future where you could perceive it happening.
Yeah, like Kyle Reese talks about serving in the war from like 22 to 29, and they're like 2022. It's like, oh my god, no.
The 132nd under Perry, from 21 to 27.
That's the year 2027.
To be fair, Lucas, we're still in the 20s. It could happen.
It could,
we can still fight in the resource wars.
Just OpenAI becomes Skynet. It's like, oh no.
How do you defeat like ChatGPT powered Terminators? I don't know. Ask them to draw a fucking circle. So how do you tell the difference between a Terminator and a human? Well, they've got 18 fingers. They've got too many fingers. They've just like ChatGPT Skynet can't draw fingers.
They've like become Jesus crabs at this point.
And all the female ones have massive tits, even if it isn't relevant.
Oh, but yeah, of course, going back to the Terminator itself, it's a 1984 American sci-fi action film directed by James Cameron, written by Cameron, and Gail Ann Hurd, and produced by Hurd. One thing that I know is like Gail Ann Hurd was James Cameron's to-be wife at the time.
Now ex-wife. There is great footage out there of her winning an Oscar instead of him. Over Avatar, I think it was.
Right.
It was like the year where he thought Avatar was going to win. You see him in the audience like do a double take, and then he tries to hide how annoyed he is. It's great.
It's like, man, obviously, you know, they must have had a good relationship for a little while at the time because, you know, got to the point where they got married. But when you just learn that, like, oh, well, James Cameron, he got fucked over on the set of, like, Piranha 2, and that's where he, like, decided to make the Terminator or got the idea for Terminator.
He didn't get fucked over. It's just that working on Piranha 2 was not a nice experience because it was a Roger Corman production.
He didn't get credited.
Oh yeah, because he did uncredited special effects work, but he still got paid.
I think the story is something along the lines of they had to have him as like a Hollywood, you know, American director, and then
that was it. Sorry, yeah, he did the special effects work, but he basically ended up directing the movie.
But then they weren't going to credit him for the movie.
I know he did the special effects. I forgot that aspect of why he ended up directing the movie and didn't get credit for it. So, well, fuck it, I'm just going to make my own movie.
But then in the end, they decided to I think they ended up crediting him. But the film was so bad he didn't want to be credited by the end of it or something.
I think it's after Terminator did well, they released a new version of that of like directed by James Cameron. And like by that point he had a pretty he's like, no, don't put that on.
But as all that shit was going down, he's like, I'm gonna go make my own film, The Terminator, and then Gail Ann Hurd apparently like bought the film rights to produce it off him for like $1.
For $1, yeah.
And it's like when you learn that, oh my god, the Terminator film rights were sold for $1.
It's the only way he could keep his creative control, though. Something similar happened with Rocky, where Sylvester Stallone like basically sold the rights to it for next to nothing, like Rocky, so he could maintain a directorial control.
Two franchises they are still farting out to this day.
Sequels too, yeah. It's like, name a better combo, just young Hollywood creatives and just big executives who are like, I can make some money off this. Rubbing their hands together. I always imagine when it's like that, they've got pincer hands, like praying mantises.
It stars Arnold Schwarzenegger as the Terminator, of course, who is a cybernetic assassin sent back in time from 2029 to 1984.
The thing is as well, how good is Arnold Schwarzenegger as the Terminator? Because obviously you must be so used to him as like, even in Terminator 2 he talks and there's some humour and some levity to his roles. Especially like, you know, his later career where he started playing into the fact he's known for his action movies and played against type.
Yeah.
He's so threatening as a Terminator, right? It's so unsettling to see him just not emote.
That's the weird thing, right? Is because the first Terminator is a bit more of like a slower paced, flatter movie, especially in terms of like performances. Like I think like even like Sarah Connor and Kyle Reese are like play a bit wooden at times before they get to the second part of the movie where they like start, you know, developing feelings for one another, etc. But that's kind of the point with the Terminator, right? Is because he's meant to be an unfeeling cyborg.
Yes, and Arnold Schwarzenegger's like easily the best part of that entire movie because he plays the just emotionless killing machine so well.
Sarah Connor?
Yes.
Obviously, we know Arnold Schwarzenegger, he's so famous now, but at the time, he even talks about how nobody looked like me. Like when he did Conan, which is what he did before Terminator, the reason he got cast as Conan is because he looked straight up just like the Frank Rosetta posters that he would do for Conan. Like he had the build, and he got to do his own stunts because there's no stuntman big enough to be Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, true.
So now you can put in the footage of Arnold Schwarzenegger getting attacked by dogs. And I think a couple of his bodybuilder friends basically ended up becoming just his unofficial stunt doubles because they were the only people that they could find who had the similar body type to him. And Arnold Schwarzenegger would always do his bodybuilding friends a favour. Like the opening shot of the movie, do you know where like Kyle Reese sees the Terminator clad in darkness? Mm-hmm. That's Arnold Schwarzenegger's longtime friend. That's supposed to be like the T-600, which they say doesn't look as human. Has like the weird rubber skin. He talks about. That's why you only see it in silhouette.
And man, speaking of rubber skin, that was one thing that threw me off.
One bad effect, yeah.
Just the rubber man where they use several times throughout the movie of like the Terminator just repairing itself in this motel room or whatever. Those rubber man shots don't look good.
They don't look good, and it's wild to look at the difference between those and the ones in like Terminator 2. Like the effects in Terminator 2, we just got to show like, you know, what a lot of money. The difference like $200 million makes.
Yeah, right, because just the jump between the effects in T1 and T2 is wild.
And in T1, a lot of it was done practically because they couldn't afford to do anything else. Like a shot that I always single out is, you know, like when the Terminator jumps onto the front of the car and he punches through the window and he catches on fire. That's like actually a stunt guy who just jumped onto the front of a car and punched through the window. And for the close-ups of Arnold Schwarzenegger, to get him to look like he was on fire, they poured acid on his jacket.
God.
It's cheaper than special effects. Just set him on fire.
Yeah, just do it. Just actually do it.
Like, do you have the shot as well where he walks up to a car and just punches through the window? Mm-hmm. You think, is that like fake glass? That's a real car. They knew it was there, but they didn't have a permit to film there. They booked James Cameron parts like a beater on the street and told Arnold Schwarzenegger to walk over, punch through the window and drive away. Like, Arnold Schwarzenegger asked him, is it fake glass? And James Cameron's like, no. Does that matter? Not really, no.
I love it when they're trying to like explain away everything of the Terminator in the police station, and they're like, look, you see this body armor? And they like bang on it, and this could stop like 12 gauge shotgun rounds, no problem. So that's probably what he was wearing underneath that big jacket of his. And then, you know, he's punched through a window, but he was probably just on PCP and broke his hand. It's fine, it's fine.
I love the fact as well that he walks in with a shotgun, and it's like, they do not stop that shotgun.
Don't worry about it, we'll keep you safe. And he just like drives into the police station literally and just annihilates every single cop in like 1 minute. That's the first time I think in the movie that it really sells the threat of the Terminator.
Yeah, because you think, like, where would be the safest place to be if there's like a crazy man with a gun chasing after you? It's like, and the caveat of, you're a white woman in distress. Police station. It's like, nah, man. Just drives through.
Yeah.
They might be bulletproof, but they're not car proof.
He's been an effective killing machine so far, but most of the people he's killed are like unarmed civilians that weren't expecting anything to happen. Kyle Reese manages to just at least incapacitate him for a moment by unloading a shotgun into him and then just drives away. The Terminator, is good at killing random Sarah Connors, but how efficient are they at actually terminating everyone? It's like, no, they just go into that police station and just wipe it down. As
well, that's the only part of the film that's like not well aged, right? Where he goes into the phone book to look for someone.
I mean, yeah, because I grew up where phone books was still a thing, but someone a bit younger than us, probably like, you know, born from 2000s, is just like, what the fuck is he even looking through?
The idea is all a phone book had your address in it.
Yeah.
They just had a thing in the street that told you where everybody lived. I'm like, that sounds terrifying in this day and age.
Like, just an open book that doxes everybody that you want to find. It's like,
the thing is, if it doxes everybody, no one's doxed, right?
Yeah,
Whatever.
I guess. But
tell me more about the Terminator, though.
The Terminator is sent back in time to kill Sarah Connor, who is played by Linda Hamilton, whose unborn son will one day save mankind from extinction by Skynet, a hostile artificial intelligence in a post-apocalyptic future. It's no longer the future, it's just the present, Karl.
Right, Skynet is so shit at its job. Because the more Terminator movies they make, the more it makes Skynet just seem really incompetent, right? Mm-hmm. You couldn't kill one person with a gun.
And especially when it's time travel as well. Like, oh, well, we've sent one Terminator back in time. The effects must be instant, though, right? Because if you're still fighting resistance...
Lucas, like,
it's already failed.
I understand what you're doing. I know what you're doing. Don't.
I know.
Terminator as a franchise does not work if you try and examine how a time travel works. It doesn't work. It makes no sense.
Like, realistically, all Skynet needs to do is send one back, and if there's still resistance fighters outside, send another back, and keep sending them back till those resistance fighters outside aren't there anymore.
And that's why one of the most interesting time travel concepts I've seen is in the game Quantum Break, where it's like the instant the guy discovers time travel, his future self walks through the door. Like the second he activates it, his future self walks through the door. Oh, hey, this is how it should be, right? Because the effects, unless you create a parallel branching timeline, at which point, why would you give a shit? Because it doesn't help you.
And that's the weird thing is, even in the Terminator itself, like Karl Reese is like, well, yeah, it's one of many possible futures that I've come from.
And it creates like, it's a causal loop, right? Because he goes back in time, and then it's them getting together that creates John Connor. But I personally don't ascribe to that theory because it makes no sense of like, how did the exact moment they had sex create that exact John Connor? Mm-hmm. So my theory is, if you've watched it recently, do you remember the first thing Sarah Connor does before she leaves for work? There's a phone. She gets a phone call. I don't know if it's a phone call or a phone message from a guy. So before the events of the film, change her plans, she was going to go on a date. And she's talking about having a date, or how a date went. In my head, that's John Connor. That's John Connor's dad.
I don't know if that's before work. I think it might be after a shift, right? Because then...
But at some point before like the plot kicks in, she mentions that she went on a date. That's John Connor's dad, not Kyle Reese. Ultimately, it doesn't matter who his dad is. It just matters that he survives and fulfills the prophecy. Because how would he be the same John Connor? Like, Sarah Connor was already pregnant with John Connor.
Maybe she was actually pregnant with, like, her roommate's boyfriend's kid, who's, like, the weird creep on the phone.
Maybe, but, like, she'd already gone on a date. That's my theory, anyway. Because otherwise it makes no sense, because how would Kyle Reese, like, how would the exact sperm needed to make the baby John Connor jump out of his jizz at the exact right moment to create the future they wanted?
Well, Karl Reese says he's never been with a woman, so he's just been saving it all up, Karl.
Yeah.
It's weird though, right? Because Karl Reese talks about the fact that, oh, well, John Connor gave me this picture of you, and I've examined like every single line and detail on this picture, and I've always loved you. And it's like, so you are going back in time to find a woman that is a woman that you're in love with, quote unquote, by just staring at a picture of her.
Yeah. Also, does that mean John Connor knows he's sending someone back to fuck his mum?
Yes, he does, yeah.
If you don't send Kyle, you could never be. God, a person could go crazy thinking about this.
That makes no sense. That's why my reading of it is that she was already pregnant. Mm-hmm. It's not so much that Kyle Reese it doesn't matter if Kyle Reese is the dad or not. What matters is that she's aware that her son will be the saviour of humanity. Mm-hmm. Then it matters that Terminator 2 comes in and fucks it all up anyway, so who gives a shit?
They have to make sure that Karl Reese goes back in time to tell Linda Hamilton to become a badass by Terminator 2.
Yeah. And she becomes a fucking badass by Terminator 2.
She does, yeah. And that's another, interesting thing about this movie is, like, a lot of problems were happening with, like, Terminator 2 and then Terminator 3 and stuff. And basically, a lot of it was Schwarzenegger wanting to do more sequels with James Cameron. And then Linda Hamilton saying, I ain't fucking coming back unless you let me be a badass in the sequel.
Yeah. And she wanted to train with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Arnold Schwarzenegger himself complimented Linda Hamilton on how in shape she got.
The difference between Linda Hamilton, both physically and fashion-wise between T1 and T2 was wild.
There are 215 bones in the human body. That's one. Now don't move.
She doesn't even seem like the same person.
It might be one of the most dramatic transformations for an actor. It's ridiculous, and she got so in shape, and it makes it even funnier as well, because, you know, she has, like, an identical twin sister.
Oh, of course she does, yeah.
Yeah, that's what they use for, like, a lot of, like, the T-1000 shots.
Mm-hmm.
Of, like, when it's portraying Linda Hamilton, they get a sister to stand kind of in the distance because her sister wasn't as in shape.
They also did the famous, like, deleted scene mirror trick with her twin as well, with just someone that looked vaguely, you know, Terminator shaped as the person who had the back shot.
Do it.
Yeah, it talks about the fact here that Cameron devised the premise of the film from a fever dream he experienced.
Yes, I do know this. He had a nightmare, right, on the set of Piranha 2.
He also had a nightmare just with Piranha 2. But
then he actually had a literal nightmare. Yeah. And does it describe what the nightmare was?
It doesn't actually explain it, but I believe it's like that there was just a robot crawling along like a kitchen floor, dragging itself, like trying to catch him, right?
A robot skeleton specifically. And
yes.
He thought it was such a horrifying image that he basically wrote the entire film to create that visual. Which is why the visual at the end is just like, he thought, what would be the scariest creature to be like hunted by? Something that just never gives up. That's why he came up with the idea of like, why would it be crawling? Because you've already thought you killed it. And that's why the idea of like, what would you use to kill something? Kill it with fire. You set it on fire and just a skeleton crawls out. And it's like, oh shit, no, it's still a skeleton.
That's one of the most like cool visuals of the entire movie, right? Is there's the janky rubber man like removing one eye and stuff, but just the endoskeleton at the end,
standing up, from the flames,
just getting out the flames and then absolutely annihilating Kyle Reese. It's like he was here for a day.
You have no chance.
It's definitely, though, again, just T2 being the perfect sequel. They basically recreate that effect again with the second film, but it's just done better in like every single way because it's T2 and like the whole, going down in the lava with the thumbs up is such a more iconic visual than just like slowly crushing this Terminator that's meant to be completely unstoppable.
To be fair though, it is in like an industrial hydraulic press.
Oh yeah, right? Yeah. Don't get me wrong, that thing would stop basically anything, but
the fact that that's what they need to rely on, I think that's what makes it scary, right? Like, not only, and then imagine then you hear that, you're like, oh thank God we killed it, and it's like, how many does Skynet have? 8 billion. It took all that to kill one, and there's like 1 billion of these fucking things. Like Skynet sends like 400 back.
I do find it fascinating of just one thing where they're very seemingly unfamiliar with what tech is and isn't around, because Kyle Reese gets sent back and he's like, oh shit, what's the date? I think like it's the wrong date and all this.
Mm-hmm.
And then he talks about how like, well, I don't think I can actually destroy this thing with technology that you've got here.
I don't think anything you've got, like your weaponry that you have, would work, right?
And then even the Terminator goes to the gun store and starts asking like, oh, yeah, I'll get like a 12-gauge shotgun, please. I'll get this handgun. Oh, can I have a plasma rifle?
It's like, we don't know what they are. We're like, what, a 12-watt capacity or something like that.
Yeah.
I think that's more to establish that it knows how to use future shit.
You would think that if you're sending something back in time, you would have it programmed with exactly what
it needs to know.
Yeah, what the technology of the time would be, and how to most efficiently use that technology, not just send it back in time with all of this future bullshit knowledge.
I'd program it, go back and become an actor, and become famous, and then run Sarah Connor over your car, and you'll get away with it.
Oh god. The film initially had low pre-release expectations, but despite this, the Terminator topped the United States box office for 2 whole weeks, eventually grossing a $78.3 million against a modest $6.4 million budget.
Yeah, and that's like, that sounds like a lot of money for like, basically a guy who's never had a movie under his belt. Well, he begged, borrowed and stealed as much as he could and basically signed over. producing credits for $1 to gain access to that money and those resources.
Exactly.
Even
right.
still, they had to really cut a lot of corners. And if it goes into production, there's a bunch of like really cool cost-cutting measures that ended up defining how that film looked. If you've got production there.
Well, we can go straight to production now, Karl.
Let's go.
Cameron's agent disliked the early concept of the horror film and requested that he work on something else. After this, Cameron dismissed his agent. And just one of those wise decisions by Cameron, it turns out. You know,
it's one of those like what if moments, right? Like, what if James Cameron never fired his agent? It's like you know the one like Keanu Reeves, where Keanu Reeves, whose name means something like the cool breeze that goes over a waterfall in summer. Mm-hmm. His agent went, "Nah, man, that sucks. Call yourself Chuck Spadina." So Keanu Reeves just fired his fucking agent and went, "No, I'm Keanu Reeves."
Hi, I'm Chuck Spadina.
You would not be famous if he was called Chuck Spadina, right?
He wouldn't be playing Shadow the Hedgehog, I know that much.
You would not know.
You're not getting Chuck Spadina to play Shadow the fucking Hedgehog.
So every time you hear those stories, like, why are Hollywood executives so fucking stupid? How did they get to the positions they are when they seemingly don't understand what people want? And the idea is they're rich and no one can tell them otherwise. And they can... so rich they can afford to make mistake after mistake after mistake and then just capitalise on the success of like smaller creatives who actually do know what they're doing.
Yeah, just speaking of someone who might have been pretty clever though, it's just got a picture of Gale Ann Hurd where it just says like Gale Ann Hurd bought the rights to the Terminator for $1. So that's a fucking clever move. It's a bullshit move.
Yeah, it sucks for James Cameron, but
yeah, certainly knew what they were doing there. He's like, man, talk about just the Terminator and the Predator together. Just Gale on her. Just going in to destroy James Cameron's career.
Yeah.
And obviously she didn't, but like, man, that's such a horrible thing to see in hindsight.
It sucks so much, right, for him, but it's the only way he could get his movie made.
Well, that's the thing, right, is you talk about what-if moments. If he hadn't done that and didn't take that awful deal, the Terminator probably wouldn't have ever happened and he wouldn't have had the career he did, so...
And it would have been a lot... Or it could have been the Terminator, but it would have been a lot more low budget, more in line with, like, a Piranha 2.
Yeah, it's a sucky thing that happened, but at the same time, it's the bullet that he needed to bite in order to launch his career.
Every now and again, you just go eat that shit sandwich. It's like, I don't want to eat a shit sandwich. It's like, no one wants to eat a shit sandwich, but today's your turn.
Yeah. The initial outline of the script involved 2 Terminators being sent to the past. The first was similar to the Terminator in the film, but the second was made of liquid metal and could not be destroyed with conventional weaponry.
Yeah, which he reimagined for the second film, because it's just... They could not accomplish that effect with the budget they had at the time.
Yeah, it was pretty much that, Cameron felt the technology at the time was unable to create the liquid Terminator and shelved the idea until the appearance of the T-1000 in T2, because at that point, they'd already done the Abyss, is it? With
Abyss,
the water face.
That's what convinced him that the T2 Terminator, the liquid metal Terminator could work. Mm-hmm. Although he was unsure if they could do it for an entire movie.
You watch the Terminator 2, like, they don't use it that much, but they use it enough, and sparingly enough, to, like, both sell the liquid Terminator, but also not, like, balloon the budget catastrophically.
And they also as well use it in tandem with practical effect, which is the thing we always talk about of like special effects, both practical and CGI and digitally created. They work best when they're used in tandem with one another, so the advantages of one can cover for the weaknesses of the other.
Exactly, yeah. Which the prison bar scene is like an excellent example of, just like...
Yeah, because you have the special effects of it gliding through there, but then it cuts to like the physical but the physical actor going and dragging the gun to root it in the real world.
I think one moment where they use the liquid metal effect to just the best degree is just the one you pointed out to me of him going into the wall and then just reversing immediately and running back. It's like, man. That's such a clever use of having a liquid body. Obviously, we talked about it, but it says Cameron sold the rights to Hurd for $1 with the premise that she would only produce it if Cameron was to direct it. So
yes,
she's like, look, I will go ahead, I will buy the rights to this movie, I'll get it sorted, but don't fuck off on me. Like, you are the one with this vision. I need you here to direct this movie.
Yeah, and that's why he willingly signed it over for $1, because that's what he needed to do to retain creative control. There's plenty of stories like that from Hollywood history. George Lucas is another example with Star Wars, where he willingly, I don't know the exact amount, but he paid some ridiculous amount of money to get the opening crawl of Star Wars be the opening, because under union rules, you had to have, like, the director and actor's name first on screen. And he didn't want, when a film opens, it'll like say executive producer, starring, and all that stuff. That's like the unions insist on that. And George Lucas willingly paid money to the unions so he could have the opening crawl. Similarly, he waived his own director's fee. And Fox were like, yeah, well, okay, your director's fee, what do you want in return? The merchandising rights. No, oh yeah, they're not even worth anything. You can have those. You can have those. We'll take your director's fee, you get the merchandising rights to Star Wars. I wonder how that's going to work out for you.
Then he decided to make a toy of every single prop that existed in that fucking film.
McClunky, let's go.
Just like, what's the joke, like shit Glubbo or something like that?
Thing is though, right, what like toy would you want from the Terminator? There's so many, like, they do have those like super detailed like play arts models, don't they, of like the Terminator and stuff.
I want one, but it's specifically of the rubbery animatronic that takes its eye out.
The really ugly animatronic. See, what I'd want is, do you like Hulk fists?
Yeah.
The big rubber Hulk. I want them, but I want them to be the Liquid Terminator's like sword arms.
I thought you were just going to say that, like, Arnold Schwarzenegger's arms.
Just giant Arnold Schwarzenegger fists. No, I want like the Liquid Terminator's like metal arms that used to hang onto the back of the car.
Heard apparently suggested edits to the script and took a screenwriting credit in the film, though Cameron stated that she did no actual writing at all.
Which is another thing in Hollywood and just production of media in general. In music, it's, for example, known as the write a word, get a third clause. And it's normally used to get artists who aren't good at writing songs just make it look as if they are, because they come in, make one suggestion of one word or one bit of phrasing, and now you get a writing credit on this. Same for like a lot of producers who to massage their own ego, they will insist upon changes using their clout to the script, no matter how minor, so they can get a screenwriting credit.
And that's often why you see that, oh yeah, the screenwriters for this movie are the screenwriter and then 3 other people.
Yeah.
It's because just the producers all came in and just made one suggestion.
Made one change. That's like, maybe you should like say this. I don't want to say this. You should say it though, or you don't get any money. Fine, I'll say this. I wrote that line. Give me a third of the writing credit.
Can't remember whether it says here that whether Schwarzenegger gets any like actual writing credit on this, because technically he had some kind of collaboration with like the "I'll be back" line.
Well, no, that's the thing. He didn't. The detail is that he didn't, because he wanted to change the "I'll be back" line because he felt that a robot wouldn't use contractions. It wouldn't use "I'll." It would say "I will be back," and then James Cameron told him, "Shut up." And that was the end of the conversation.
I mean, that sounds exactly like what happened with Heard, right? She made a suggestion, nothing got changed, and she got writing credits.
Yeah, so if people don't know the story here, is Arnold Schwarzenegger wanted the line to be "I will be back" because he felt a robot would not use contractions. Also, his accent made "I'll" sound odd. I'll be back. Yeah. And James Cameron just went, well, look, you act, I'll write.
I'll be back.
I may be just misremembering, but obviously the "I'll be back" line is very memorable and quotable. The "Come with me if you want to live" by Karl is like a really badly delivered line.
It's awfully delivered, Jeff. Like,
is it done again by Arnold in T2?
Come with me if you want to live.
Like, Karl says it, and I was like, that's that line? That's... what?
Come with me if you want to live.
That famous line, right? Because in your head, you imagine it as him like, screaming, as gunfire's blazing, and we're like, come with me if you want to live. It's like, come with me if you want to live. Just hold his hand out. And it's really understated.
Like, gone. And I was like, oh, that was not the big, memorable, like, quotable line that I remembered it to be.
Do you know why it is? It's because in your head, it's been referenced so much in other pieces of media, and when they reference it, they draw attention to it. Whereas in that movie, it's just a line of dialogue that is said.
Yeah, it's just like any other line, whereas at least there's some emphasis put on "I'll be back," because they kind of knew that was going to be a repeated moment, but
they didn't know usually with people. They do like focus in on the ropes. You think, what's the Terminator going to do? Because you expect it's like punched through the glass or something, and it's actually a great little bit of misdirection because you expect the Terminator to respond violently as it has the entire time, and the fact that it responds with, like, "I'll be back," shows that it's actually more threatening than you even like. At first, it's already threatening. It's like a 7-foot tall dude with a shotgun who's like bulletproof. But the fact it has the ability to problem solve makes it even scarier.
Yeah, and obviously, when I say like repeated, they already knew that was going to be a memorable line, right?
I think it was in the trailer. Yeah, I think it's like the trailer line. Whereas they didn't know it was going to be a thing that they'd keep repeating, but it did get repeated. It's like the cornerstone of Arnold Schwarzenegger's career. Like that line, it gets referenced in like every movie he does. Yeah,
I was just really, really thrown off and like questioned everything I knew about the "come with me if you want to live." I was like, man, that was such a forgettable moment, and yet it spawned countless, references to it in the future.
Like I said, it's just a line of dialogue in a good movie.
I've said a lot of things about how much Terminator 2 is a lot better than this movie. I still really enjoyed this movie and thought it held up relatively well.
As well, isn't it? Besides some of those like a bit wonky effects, a real good-looking movie.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why it's so good-looking, I alluded to this earlier, is that James Cameron has a very good eye for shot detail. And even though he didn't have a lot of money, what he did is he drove around. Does it say where it was filmed? But wherever it was filmed, James Cameron very specifically drove around looking for a very specific type of light that used like the blue. I don't know what the type of light is, but it gives off that really nice bluey glow. So Joe, right at the start where he walks in naked, and you have that really like good like pulling shot of his eyes as he's looking around.
Yeah,
and you see like just there's that blue sheen on him, which almost makes it look futuristic. It has that, like the futuristic sheen. That's not lighting done artificially. That's the lighting in that part of a city they were filming in that James Cameron specifically sought out because he liked the way it added that blue tint to everything, like steel. Like it added this like cold, like almost I said like steel effect to every one of those shots, which subtly alludes to the fact that underneath all that flesh is metal.
And yeah, I was having a look there. It does say originally it was set to begin filming in Toronto in 1983. Because of Conan the Barbarian being filmed at the time, it got pushed back, and it says, the film began production in Los Angeles.
So it was in Los Angeles, yes. So you went to like some of the not as nicer areas of Los Angeles where you could film without permits. There's a lot of the stuff that was filmed without permits. Like the last shot of the film, Joe, it's like just the driving off into the distance. That was like the last thing they filmed, and James Cameron waited until sundown, just sat by the side of the road with his camera in his car, waiting for that. And then he said the exact moment the sun got to the right point to film a shot, police car just comes over the horizon. He's like, for fuck's sake. Police officer gets out, was like, what are you doing? Filming a movie. Do you have a permit? And he's like, I don't have a fucking permit. He went, we're students. And he managed to blag it to the cop that he was a student. And the cop's like, okay, get your shot and then go on home. But he was this close to like just the police officer arresting him.
Guerrilla filmmaking, right, where you go out and try and get your shots without permits and shit.
Yeah.
The reason why big productions don't do that is because you can just straight up get arrested for it.
You can get in trouble for it, yes. And it's just the story of, he said, the moment the sun got into the perfect position for the shot, just like, woo, woo, it's like, for fuck's sake, there's never one around when you need one, right?
I do respect, like, that kind of just ballsiness of just going into the street, getting some cameras and being like, quick, just film us breaking into our own car as quickly as possible and go.
Well, it's the classic, right? You ask for forgiveness, not permission.
As I say, Terminator 2 is just the literal ideal of like the perfect sequel.
I would rather watch Terminator 2, but I don't think it makes Terminator 1 a bad movie. Terminator 1 is still a fantastic movie. It's just I'm more often in the mood to watch a good action movie than I am a good horror movie.
I always just rewatch Terminator 2 if I felt in the need to watch a Terminator film. I didn't want to fuck around with 1 or 3, but rewatching the Terminator is fascinating, and I think it does hold up pretty well, especially considering the fact that it was just, James Cameron's first like proper film, obviously, you know, the set of Piranha 2 and all that jazz, but really does mostly hold up, apart from, like, a few janky effects and stuff, but even then...
That adds to its charm, right?
It's still charming and funny to look at, but it doesn't pull you out of the movie too much before, like, it does for a second, and then all of a sudden it's just Arnold Schwarzenegger kicking ass again and you don't care anymore.
Yeah. And just like, the heroic amount of effort from Arnold Schwarzenegger at the time. This is the thing people maybe don't know about Arnold Schwarzenegger. He was already a millionaire before he became an actor. Everyone always thinks like, oh, he's this guy who came over to Hollywood and got his big break in Conan. It's like he was already a millionaire when he was in Conan, but after he got his he was flipping real estate for anyone who doesn't know. He used his bodybuilding earnings to flip real estate and was a millionaire. Went to university and got a double degree in business and political theory. Which explains how he became a politician. And then when they asked him what he wanted to do, he went, I want to become an actor. Like, no, you'll never become an actor. You're too big, your name's too weird, your accent sounds funny. He's like, no, fuck you. I'm going to be an actor. And then was in Conan and Terminator 2 and Jingle All the Way.
The most important of all his films, yes.
It is.
And
it's the trifecta, right, of Arnold Schwarzenegger movies. It's Terminator 1, Terminator 2, Jingle All the Way.
I like how, put T1 and T2 and Jingle All the Way over, The Predator. It's fine.
Ugly motherfucker.
I will be working my way through and trying to update my knowledge of classic films for you all, because I have seen some comments, here, there, and everywhere of just man, Lucas doesn't watch any classic films, does he?
He does. He watches One Piece, and just because you're watching these movies, don't mean I want to watch One Piece. Because until you watch 1,000 episodes worth of movies, we are not in equivalence here, my friend.
I'll do it. I'll watch 50 days worth of movies.
Is that how much One Piece there is?
No, of course not. I was exaggerating. It's a few hundred hours though, so there's quite a lot of films in there, right?
But that could be a fun thing as well. Maybe we can in our Discord, at some point we'll think of a list of movies that we would consider to be essential viewing, and see and send that to the other one and get the other, and the other one can. I'll do an episode about a film that you're really a big fan of.
I can, watch 300 films and you can watch one anime.
If that's what you'd want me to do, if you prefer me watch a season of an anime or something.
Yeah, watch all of the seasons of One Piece.
Can't you pick a shorter one? So I want to go back and watch some. I think Card Captor Sakura. I want to go back and watch that. I watched it as a kid and Tenshi Muyo.
You can't go and watch Card Captors before you even try One Piece.
Well, Card Captor's only one season, right?
Yeah, but you could watch a season of One Piece.
I could watch a season of One Piece, but...
Oh, you can't keep doing this, Karl. It's fine. Let's move on. Thank you, everyone, for watching. I'll watch more classic films soon.
And I'll watch more classic anime.
Hell yeah, like One Piece.
Card Captor Sakura. The reason I want to watch that one is because apparently, the Japanese version is completely fucking different.
Oh, it is, yeah.
They just hacked it apart for the version we got over here. That's why I'd be curious to watch it.
Make sure to go over to the Patreon to vote on which classic movie I watch next. And thank you all for watching. See you next time.